So I just got done watching Maul Shadow Lord, so I'm going to talk about it here. If you have not seen Maul Shadow Lord, now is your chance to click off because I will be discussing a whole bunch of spoilers, top to bottom, all 10 episodes. Three, two, one, spoilers from here on out. Um, the show takes place primarily on the planet of Janix, follows, as you can assume by the name of the show, Darth Maul. And his underworld crime syndicate with Rook cast. There's also the characters of Brander Lawson and his son Riley Lawson. Then you have the Jedi, which are Daki, which his name sounds like Takis, and Devin, who are these are the central main characters, along with the droid named Two Boots and comedic relief Vario. It kind of starts off with a simple underworld crime syndicate story that's very akin to, I guess you could say something like The Mandalorian or Book of Boba Fett in terms of aesthetics. The underworld of, or like Solo, right? The underworld of Star Wars with crime families and, Machiavellian schemes. And the show starts off relatively decent. I'm not going to say it's perfect because it still has its share of girl bosses and intersectionality and whenever there's a villain that's shows up that's human, usually they're white. So all the characters that are supposed to be good guys are POCs, people of color or whatever. Positives about this show, I would say, are things like Brander Lawson is a likable character. He's a father who's a single father helping raise his son while his wife works for the Empire. And so, or maybe his ex-wife works for the Empire. His son's mother works for the Empire, essentially. But they're separated. And he's just an officer, a local officer trying to fight crime on Janix. And the crime with Darth Maul gets so intense that, there's recommendations from Two Boots that he should call in the Empire to help with the problem. But he is very adamant about not wanting the Empire to get involved. It's a local issue, so he doesn't want Imperial authorities stomping in on what they're doing on Janix. Meanwhile, you have Devin and Daki, who are two Jedi that survived the Jedi Order Purge, which, talking about this before, the more Jedi that survived Order 66, the less impactful Order 66 becomes. So that's still a criticism I have to this day. But nonetheless, these characters are, at the very least, likable. Daki is voiced by the guy that is the Allstate guy. So Daki at least is somewhat relatable. Devin starts off kind of relatable, but over time she kind of becomes a bitch and just another girl boss because Lucasfilm is incapable of writing actual likable women. For some reason, they just can't do it, in spite of the fact that it's all women there. But eventually, the crime gets so bad that the Empire is called in by Two Boots, and then we have at least 3 or 4 episodes of Imperial occupation. And with that Imperial occupation comes lockdowns and hiding, and it comes your standard post Revenge of the Sith, pre A New Hope sort of Star Wars, where the Empire controls everything, and the Jedi have to go in hiding, and Maul has to go into hiding. The show is definitely more plot driven than it is character driven, and that's not really a compliment. As good as I could say this show is, it has its flaws, and it's not perfect, but it's the best show that I've seen from Disney Star Wars, maybe aside from Andor. But again, the bar's so low that mediocre crap is like impressive, right? The bare minimum of not making lightsabers batons, and that their lightsabers actually cut through things and are respected as lightsabers. The bare minimum of seeing lightsaber battles in each episode, whether they're used against blasters or used against other lightsabers. The bare minimum of the Force being used and being talked about. the bare minimum of world building, things like that, and consequences of characters' actions. Uh, One thing I would say that there's inconsistencies. For example, Maul could have killed Brander Lawson at one point on his rampage and didn't because Brander Lawson had plot armor. And same thing where Maul was jumping out like on episode 6, he was jumping out of a building or something. He crash lands, does a little Sidious spin until he crashes, and he doesn't die because his plot armor's there. So well, yeah, I mean, obviously he got cut off at the gut there. So his intestines are fried, his spine is gone, he ain't got no asshole, he ain't got no dick, he can't eat or shit or piss or jerk off or have kids or nothing. He's cut from the waist down, bro. And we're having these moments where he's drinking tea. It's like, where's that tea go? Because I know you're not pissing it out, Maul. you know? Along with this show, it has its fair share of Easter eggs and cameos and member berries. Remember the Clone Wars? Remember Rebels? It's all that bullshit, man. It just gets tiring. People call it character development. I don't think it is. I think it's just member berries to convince you that it's character development. When you have two Boots and Vario that are basically comedic relief, which balance out more serious, dramatic characters like Maul, Lawson, Daki, and Devin. But with the with all this, we do have a couple things where Maul's whole goal is trying to get Devin to become his apprentice. That is his goal from the start. And it was very predictable early on that Devin was going to be kind of like Disney's version of Darth Talon. And I think we're going to get that, especially with the end, where, Darth Vader shows up. Why does Darth Vader show up? Why does he care about Janix? Is there any particular reason for this? They don't exactly explain it. And as I said, the show is more plot driven than character driven. But at the same time, there's plot inconsistencies like that. They don't really explain why Darth Vader's on Janix to solve this particular problem. I think it was just member berries. Remember Darth Vader? That's what it was. That's essentially what it came down to. And although it was a cool battle, it's always good to see Darth Vader, no matter what. I mean, and Obi-Wan Kenobi sucked, but tomato to rapist. But essentially, his fight with Maul, Daki, and Devin was interesting, and I was, there's a little piece of kid inside me that was excited for that. But I was more asking the question, why? Why was Darth Vader there? Why wasn't he saying anything? Why won't the Inquisitors say anything? Why won't any of the Stormtroopers say anything? Why won't anybody tell me why Darth Vader was actually there? And I have a theory about that, and I think the theory is Lucasfilm did not want to use the late, great James Earl Jones' voice posthumously because he had just passed away like a year ago. And they didn't want to use his voice because they probably felt like it would be disrespectful. But on top of that, they didn't want to use AI because they're a bunch of leftist weirdos that have some sort of moral principle against AI, especially whenever you factor in how they treat Two Boots in this episode, where Two Boots becomes, because of his protocol, because of his goody two-shoes ways as a droid, he believes that the Empire is good. And we're expected to believe, oh, he's a dumb droid, so he doesn't understand the difference between the Empire and civilians. And so they play it off as him being just an ignorant droid. Of course, he finds out later on that the Empire is bad. But the fact that they would go that route to say, like, the droid would be ignorant, even though you have literal sentient droids like R2-D2 and C-3PO and K-2SO, a part of the rebellion, who are very aware of the Empire's evils and are, actively contributing to the rebellion. And you also factor in Disney's own lore of, what was it, L2SO or whatever her name was, the fucking lesbian robot that Lando fucked. She was self-aware enough to be a literal droid lives matter allegory. So, no, I don't buy that bullshit with Two Boots at all. And so, Daki dies at the hands of Darth Vader because he always was. Darth Vader was always going to kill that fool. And then Maul manages to snatch up Devin, and Devin, I guess you could say, turns to the dark side, and she starts to want to train with Darth Maul. And then you have Brander Lawson sacrifices himself to save his son. And at the end of the show, in the finale, I realized that there was, it starts off with a decent sort of fatherly figure outlook, like a themes of father figures, Docky being a father figure to Devin, Brander Lawson being a father figure to his son, Maul trying to be a father figure to Devin, all these, and Sidious being a horrible father figure to Maul. But of course, killing off Brander Lawson and Docky just kills the father figures, because this is Lucasfilm, modern day Disney, modern day Hollywood, modern day Star Wars. And so essentially, there goes out the window the potential for more father figures, and tying that into the baseness of what that could have been for storytelling. But nonetheless, at the very least, they were likable characters and make me care enough to keep watching. It was one of those shows that I was like, oh, I'm actually interested in seeing the next episode, and so it wasn't absolute dog shit, but it wasn't like the greatest thing ever. And I especially think that Darth Vader showing up was intentionally like key jangling member berries, because they don't really explain it. Now, where it's leading up to a season 2, and I'm already questioning where the continuity lies, because Dryden Voss shows up and he's from Solo, so we're now tying this into Solo. It's like, I already know where this is going, so if it doesn't end up in Rebels, then why should I care? But why should I care about it in any way? Because the fundamental problem about the show is that it's completely unnecessary. That's the ultimate problem that this show has, is that, no matter what happens in this show, the result is still the same. Maul still goes to Tatooine to find Obi-Wan. Obi-Wan kills him. And then, we have A New Hope, Empire Strikes Back, and Return of the Jedi. And then ultimately all of that means nothing, because the sequel trilogy happens and Jake Skywalker happens. So I can't be as excited as I would have been when I was a kid. I can't be as excited as I would have been prior to Disney buying Star Wars, because the sequel trilogy exists. Obi-Wan Kenobi exists. Book of Boba Fett exists. All these different things. The Acolyte still exists. You can't fix that. You can't fix that kind of damage. You can't put the milk back in the titty, as they say, But nonetheless, the show was not absolute dog shit. I wasn't completely bored watching it. And as I said already, it's more plot driven than character driven. And with that, sort of being the case, the characters remain consistent but also stagnant. And the plot sort of pushes the characters forward instead of the characters pushing the plot forward, which is a problem that Disney has had since day one, since The Force Awakens. But nonetheless, it's not the worst piece of shit I've ever seen. That's the best compliment I can give it right now. And, maybe I'll come back around for season 2. But let me know what y'all think in the comments down below. If you like the, Maul Shadow Lord, let me know in the comments down below. Like, share, and subscribe, and I will see y'all in another video very soon.